Welcome to Forbidden Files. There is an island in the Indian Ocean that the Indian government has declared permanently off limits to every human being on Earth. Not because of radiation, not because of military secrets, but because the people who live there have chosen to have absolutely no contact with the outside world. For at least 60,000 years, they have repelled every attempt at contact with bows, arrows, and spears. The last person who tried to reach them was a 26-year-old American. The fisherman who dropped him off watched the tribe bury his body on the beach the next morning. His body is still there, and India has no intention of getting it back. This is North Sentinel Island, a small island in the Bay of Bengal, roughly 60 square kilometers, about the size of Manhattan, ringed by coral reefs that make it almost impossible to approach by boat, covered in dense primary jungle, with no harbor, no landing strip, no infrastructure of any kind. And somewhere inside that jungle, a tribe of people who may be the most isolated human beings on Earth. The Andaman Islands are an Indian archipelago of 836 islands stretching through the Bay of Bengal between India, Myanmar, Thailand, and Indonesia. 6 indigenous tribes live across these islands, tribes that have existed apart from the rest of humanity for thousands of years. But North Sentinel's tribe, the Sentinelese, is different from all of them. The other tribes have had contact with the outside world. The Sentinelese have never allowed it. The Sentinelese are believed to be among the oldest continuous human populations on Earth. Anthropologists believe their ancestors migrated out of Africa approximately 60,000 years ago, making their way through South Asia and eventually settling on what is now the Andaman Islands. Around 10,000 BC, when the last ice age ended and sea levels rose, the Andaman Islands were cut off from mainland Asia. The Sentinelese were sealed on their island, and there they have remained for the entirety of recorded human history. Through the rise and fall of every civilization, through every war, through every pandemic, completely untouched. The first recorded contact between the Sentinelese and the outside world happened in 1867. A merchant vessel called the Nineveh ran aground on North Sentinel's reef. The crew of 106 people made it to shore. On the third day, the Sentinelese attacked with bows and arrows. The crew fought them off and was eventually rescued by a passing ship, but the pattern was established. Anyone who reached the shore would be attacked. In 1880, a British colonial officer named Maurice Vidal Portman arrived at North Sentinel with an armed expedition. He entered the island. The Sentinelese had disappeared into the jungle. After days of searching, Portman's men captured 6 people, an elderly man, an elderly woman, and 4 children. They took them back to Port Blair, the colonial capital. The elderly couple became sick almost immediately. They had no immunity to diseases common to the outside world. Both died within weeks. Portman returned the children to the island with gifts. It was, by any reasonable assessment, an abduction that ended in 2 deaths. The Sentinelese had good reasons not to trust outsiders. In 1974, a National Geographic documentary team accompanied Indian officials on a contact expedition to North Sentinel. They approached by boat with gifts, coconuts, a plastic car, some pigs, and a doll. The Sentinelese responded with arrows. One arrow struck the director of the film in his thigh. The gifts were left on the beach. The pigs were later seen being killed and buried. The Sentinelese wanted no part of them. The coconuts they took. Through the late 1980s and early 1990s, Indian anthropologist T.N. Pandit led a series of carefully planned contact expeditions. By bringing coconuts, which do not grow on North Sentinel, the team was able to establish brief, cautious interactions. Sentinelese individuals would approach the boats to accept coconuts. Sometimes they smiled. Sometimes they appeared curious. Sentinelese remains one of the very few people who has had peaceful contact with the Sentinelese and survived to describe it. He later said their aggression was mostly meant to communicate one clear message: they wanted to be left alone. In 1996, the Indian government ended all official contact attempts. The policy was straightforward. The Sentinelese had made their wishes clear. Forcing contact on them was ethically indefensible and practically dangerous, not just to outsiders, but to the tribe itself. A people with no exposure to the outside world have no immunity to common diseases. A single cold virus carried by a well-intentioned visitor could kill every person on the island. India declared a 3 nautical mile exclusion zone around North Sentinel. No boats, no planes below a certain altitude, no contact of any kind. The Sentinelese would be left alone. On December 26, 2004, the Indian Ocean tsunami, one of the most destructive natural disasters in recorded history, hit the Andaman Islands with devastating force. The Indian Coast Guard flew a helicopter over North Sentinel the following day to check for survivors. As the helicopter approached, a Sentinelese man emerged from the tree line and shot an arrow at it. The helicopter maintained a safe distance, but the message was unmistakable. The tribe had survived, and their position on outside contact had not changed. In January 2006, 2 Indian fishermen fell asleep in their boat after a day of fishing. During the night, their anchor came loose. The boat drifted onto the North Sentinel Reef. When they woke, they were on the island's shore. The Sentinelese killed them. Indian authorities sent a helicopter to recover the bodies. The Sentinelese drove it away with arrows. The bodies were never recovered. In November 2018, a 26-year-old American named John Allen Chow arrived in Port Blair, the capital of the Andaman Islands. He was an evangelical Christian missionary. He had been planning this trip for years. He believed North Sentinel Island was, in his own words, Satan's last stronghold on earth. He intended to bring Christianity to the Sentinelese. He had vaccinated himself against diseases he might carry to them. He had quarantined himself for 11 days. He had studied previous contact attempts. He knew people had been killed trying to reach this island. He went anyway. On November 15th, he paid 2 fishermen to take him near the island. He paddled toward shore in a kayak, carrying a waterproof Bible and gifts. The Sentinelese strung their bows. He retreated. The next day, he returned. This time, the tribe's reaction was different. According to his diary, some of them laughed when he tried to speak to them. One of them shot an arrow into his Bible. He still did not leave. On November 16, his 3rd visit, Chow told the fishermen to leave without him. He did not want them to witness whatever happened next. His final diary entry read, "Lord, is this island Satan's? Jesus, please help." The fishermen waited offshore through the day. The next morning, they returned. From their boat, they saw a figure being dragged along the beach by members of the tribe, and then buried in the sand. It was John Allen Chow. He was 26 years old. Indian authorities arrested the fishermen who had transported Chow. Violating the exclusion zone was illegal, and they had knowingly helped him break the law. The question of retrieving Chow's body was raised. Indian officials considered it and concluded it was not feasible. Any attempt would put lives at risk and violate the principles of the very law designed to protect the Sentinelese. Chow's family eventually said they forgave the tribe. The body remains on the island. His grave is somewhere on North Sentinel, visible from satellite, unreachable by any government on Earth. The story of North Sentinel Island raises questions that do not have easy answers. The Sentinelese have made an unambiguous choice. They do not want contact with the outside world. They cannot communicate that choice in a language anyone outside can understand. So they communicate it the only way available to them, with arrows. Whether their choice deserves to be respected is a question that splits anthropologists, governments, and missionaries. India has answered it one way: respect the choice, maintain the exclusion zone, leave them alone. Others argue that isolation denies the Sentinelese access to medicine, to knowledge, to contact with the rest of humanity. The Sentinelese themselves, if they are aware of this debate, have not changed their position. Today, North Sentinel Island looks exactly as it has for thousands of years. Dense jungle, white reef, turquoise water. The Indian Coast Guard patrols the exclusion zone. Anthropologists debate what we might learn from the Sentinelese and whether it is ethical to try. Somewhere on the beach, John Allen Chow's grave, and somewhere in the jungle, a tribe of people who have outlasted every civilization that has ever tried to reach them. Who survived the tsunami? Who drove away the helicopters? Who have simply, for 60,000 years, chosen to be left alone? One island, 60,000 years of isolation. A tribe that has repelled every outsider who ever came, and a government that has decided to respect that decision. Whether that is the right answer, nobody outside the island can say. The only people who know are the ones who will never tell us. There are dozens of stories like this one that most people never hear. Subscribe and we'll keep finding them. The next file is already open.